Let's cross live now to our reporter Mhlako Kumani in Ekurhuleni. We spoke to her earlier. Mhlako, what's the situation where you are right now in Ekurhuleni?
Yes, good evening, Francis. It's really been in certain areas, if not most parts, quite low turnout in terms of the people that had registered versus the people that actually made it to the polls by 9 o'clock. We just saw one last lady just going in, and that was just about 10 to 9 this morning. We also understand that in the Kingsway area, there was about 7,000 registered voters there. Only 1,000 had pitched by in late afternoon today. As well as here, we had about 2,116 voters that had registered. Only 1,049 actually made it here by the 9 o'clock cutoff. So it's quite interesting to also see that low turnout. But another part of this of Ekurhuleni is in the Rhinefield area by a voting station called the Belvedere School. We understand that there's still long queues there, people trying to get in that last minute in spite of this 9 o'clock cutoff. But in other stations, we understand that almost 50% of the voters just did not show up here. So it will be quite interesting when these numbers come in to see how these parties have actually fared. And also, I suppose to be back here and get an idea from voters, why was it that they decided not to come out and vote? In some areas that we had visited, people just sat and said, I mean, they're tired. That was what they were saying, that they're tired of the promises. I suppose if you want to call it voter fatigue, people just saying that for them it's just not worth it, so they were just going to sit at home and just enjoy the long weekend, what was like a long weekend to them, Francis.
All right, thank you. So that's the situation where you are in Ekurhuleni as the voting stations close, but the people who are on the line are still eligible to vote. Michael Makungo is in Mogalakwena in Limpopo. Michael, what are you seeing where you are?
Good evening to you and to all the viewers. We are here in Mogalakwena local municipality in Mokopane in the Ward 32. At 9 o'clock exactly the PM, the gateway was closed by the IEC officials as an indication that they are not allowing anyone as the voting station is closed. But by that time, there was no any person who was entering, and when we were in most of the voting stations in Mogalakwena just after 8 p.m., it was very quiet. There were no many people. But now as I'm talking to you, you can see it's still open here, the door. There are IEC officials inside here. I believe the counting were told that it will start any time from now until later. And then what I can say is that in Limpopo we're told that like other part of the countries, the turnout was not that good. Considering that most of the people, it looked like they did not go to the voting stations. Limpopo, we know that about 2.5 million people did register to vote, but we're not sure how many who voted so far. But definitely, there are preliminary report indicating that the turnout was not that good. In terms of the incident, we did not have much incident in this province during this local government elections. Most of the votings went well, but we know that the SABC crew was intimidated in Tanin, where the SABC was accused of reporting about the sheikhs. You remember the story about the sheikhs in Talana, where each sheikhs was about 68,000 rand was used to build those sheikhs. Also in Vilavila, I'm with you. Also in Vilavila, we know that one of the voting stations did not close on time. It was delayed due to unavailability of the scanners. Is what I can say now in Limpopo. Back to you in studio.
All right, thank you very much, Michael from Limpopo. Let's go to Neria Hlakatso in Kimberley in the Northern Cape. And this is the general picture we're hearing. The hard numbers suggest it could be a very low turnout, but maybe in some areas a final push. What do you see?
It's still very early to tell right now, Francis, but as I was traveling around Kimberley, we did see lines that were formed by residents who were there to make their mark. There was one area specifically in Lerato Park where the line was just continuing and never ending.
All right, we'll see if we can get Neria back in Kimberley in the Northern Cape. So we're trying to give you a picture of what's happening in different parts of the country, the issues that we've seen in different cities, in different provinces. Itumeleng Khajane is in Rustenburg in the Northwest Province. Itumeleng, what are you seeing?
Good evening to you, Francis, and to our viewers. So basically what happened in the Northwest Province, especially in the district of Bojanala, which comprises of Rustenburg, Brits, Moses Kotane and Khetlen Rifir, which comprises of towns such as Koster and Swartregens. It has been relatively calm. We've seen people going to different voting stations to cast their votes, and you would understand that this particular district has a population of about 750,000, which is taking part in the elections or are eligible voters. Now, we would like to hear from the different political parties, political party agents who have been observing how the elections have been going in Rustenburg, because currently we are in the Rustenburg CBD at a voting station in Ward 42. So we do have a member of the ANC who has been observing these elections. He will tell us his name and give us his own observation of how the elections have been going. Ntate, please do tell us your name and do tell us how your own observation of how the elections have been going.
I'm a member of African National Congress in Ward 42. The election went well today. The turnaround, the community came in numbers to come and vote for African National Congress. The challenge.
I think. How did the elections go? Quickly, because we need to wrap up.
Okay, the election went well. Everything went smooth, except that the IEC system went off.
Okay, administration problems, Francis. Let's quickly bring in the EFF rep, and then we'll be done. Ntate, what's your observation of how the election went today?
Yeah, my name is Upa Teleko. I'm coming from EFF, Ward 42.
How did the election go?
The elections go smoothly according to my stat here. From when they start open the gate at 7 o'clock, around about 50 people.
Did everything go well, sir?
And after a certain time, according to the 12 go tsamaile sentle ntate, ntho engwe le engwe tsamaile hantle, empa fela di vote tsa rona di ne di qadile di le nyane a di starta, but ha nako e ntse e ya hakampa motshare ka ntse di phama hona ntho e mpe e etsahetseng.
Okay, so unfortunately, because of time constraints, we are going to cut it from here. We are live in Rustenburg, but for now, he's back to you in studio.
All right, let's see if we can go back to Neria, who was reporting from Kimberley in the Northern Cape. Neria, sorry we lost you there. Just round up your situation.
Of course, I'm sorry also, Francis. But as I was telling you, that the IEC here in the Northern Cape is just basically saying for now it's too early to tell. Of course, some voting stations have closed because the 9 o'clock cutoff time has been reached. But obviously, those that had longer queues, voters will still have to vote until at least everybody's gone. Then the voting stations will close. I was speaking to the IEC also earlier. We must remember that at least in terms of incidents that happened around the province, there's not much to report about, but there was at least 22 voting stations that did not open on time. But Francis, just to give us a clearer picture on what was happening here in the Northern Cape is Bonolo from the IEC. Bonolo, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let's just talk about the overview of the day. How has everything been? And you really don't want to call the numbers as yet?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. The day went very well. We were able to open many of our voting stations on time this morning, except for a few. Some in the JTG area where we waited a bit longer for the police escort, and one or two others where a farmer did not open the venue for us. And in one incident, we did not take all the material to the voting station, but we were able to open those within an hour's time. So the day was relatively quiet and peaceful, and we were quite happy as the Electoral Commission about that.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was Bonolo there. I'm just going to quickly bring in Prof. Duvenage. We don't have so much time, sir, but I just want us to wrap up the day. Of course, you were driving around with us, looking at the voting stations. What is your take?
Well, generally speaking, it was positive and constructive. We have visited a number of voting stations, and they operate effectively, and they could immediately produce us with data and statistics. It seemed very quiet and stable.
I would love to talk more about this, Prof, but we will go back and speak more about this. We are here at the Results Center in the Northern Cape. I will cross back to you in studio for now.
All right, thank you very much. And let's go straight away to Lulama Machia in Milnerton in the Western Cape. What are you seeing now that polling stations have closed, although there may still be sub-queues?
Good evening, Francis. We are at the Botaseg Community Hall. That is under Ward 5. Voting closed at 9 o'clock at this station. I guess now the IEC officials are inside. They are counting the votes. Everything went well at this station, and it was on time. But I must say that throughout the day, Cape Town, the weather was not that great for voters. It was raining. But I must say at the same time that didn't dampen the spirit of voters, because in some of the voting stations that we went to, the people were standing in long queues, and they were patient. Even though it was raining, they were standing on the rain. They had umbrellas. Some were wrapping around themselves with warm blankets to keep themselves warm because it was raining. By 5 o'clock, the IEC in the province is saying that by 5 o'clock, the voter turnout was around 26%. But at the same time, they are saying that it's still too early to tell whether this year's percentage is going to be lower or much higher than the previous one in 2016, saying that in any event, local government election, the turnout is lower if you compare it to the national government and provincial government election. The voting stations that we went to, for instance, we started our day at Mitchell's Plain around 5 o'clock. Where we got there, voting stations were still closed at the time. We were the first people to arrive. We witnessed the IEC officials putting up banners, arriving with ballot boxes, party agents arriving at the voting station to monitor the situation. In as much as it was cold and raining, but people as well, the spirits were high on voters. You could see that some were eager to exercise their constitutional right. But they experienced challenges, Francis, because as we were speaking to some of them, they were saying that this time it was different. They were standing longer than they used to in the queues. And when we asked them what was the reason for that, some of them were attributing that to the COVID-19 situation, because remember, things are no longer done the same as previously. So they had to stand some in the queue for a long time. So now what we are experiencing in the province again, the provincial IEC is saying that there were no major incidents that were reported here in this province, except for 7 incidents, and 5 of them were due to power failure. between and the problem is between Eskom and the city of Cape Town, and it was resolved, and then voting started and it continued. They are saying that 2 incidents were due to cable theft, and then in that situation the IEC had to make some improvise and come up with their own initiatives, maybe generators or whatever, to make sure that there is power. And they are saying that it's a concern for them when there's cable theft compared to the cases whereby there was power outages because maybe Eskom or the city of Cape Town due to what had happened to that. Otherwise, in the province, the IEC, for now, they are saying everything went well.
All right, thank you very much, Lulama from the Western Cape. And we're getting a picture across several of the provinces.